Thank you all so much for coming again today. Love seeing you guys here again. So I'm just going to repeat the same thing that most of you have already heard. So for those of you who don't know me, hello and welcome. My name's Angel. So I'm a Masters of Counselling student. Today's session is not a part of my course. It is something that I have decided to do to bring to community, something I'm very passionate about, just to create sort of a safe space for people to feel comfortable, maybe if they can't afford therapy or they just want some place to feel heard and safe. That's why I created this space. And today will be recorded for educational purposes. It will be going up on YouTube along with the slides, so you can view it at a later time if there's anything that you want to come back to and view. Nobody else will be in the frame, it'll just be myself. And of course, if you do share something during the session and you don't want that to be included in the final recording, please just let me know and it will not be recorded. But we will be talking about mental health today, so if anything does come up, because it can sometimes bring up strong emotions, you need to prioritize your own well-being and honor what you need. So if you need to leave, take a breather, grab something to drink, come back later, or just leave entirely, up to you. Just tune in whatever you need. So let's get started with that. And maybe you do know this feeling. So you may have been reading all the books, maybe you've been listening to all the podcasts, maybe you even sat across from your therapist, and you know that you want to change. And you've promised yourself that it would be different this time. And yet, even without thinking, you're scrolling again when you said you'd be resting, saying yes when you wanted to say no, or repeating a pattern you thought you'd outgrown, and because something deeper is still running the show. And it's frustrating, sometimes even shameful for yourself. You feel that shame within yourself. And yet, if we're honest, there's also a tiny little bit of relief that comes by naming it, by acknowledging the part that keeps slipping back. Because in that is a sliver of hope. A hope that change is possible, not by shaming yourself into being better, but by understanding why you've been stuck and learning a new way forward. So let me ask you this quickly. Have you ever found yourself doing the exact thing that you swore you would stop doing, even though a part of you is just screaming, this is not who I want to be. I am not this person. Who's felt that way before? Yes, exactly. It is so normal. So everyone's hands shutting up, and I'm pretty sure everyone out there is shutting up their hands as well. Like, it is so normal. It is so human. So please don't feel ashamed of yourself. But there is something we need to get very clear on with that. And it's that you can't use discipline and just like out-discipline a story that you haven't rewritten yet. So today I'm not here to give you a to-do list. I'm not here to do time management talk. It's not about morning routines, and it's not about checklists or cold plunges and cold showers. It's about identity. It's about emotional survival and self-worth. So it's about learning to finally understand the unconscious agreement that you made with yourself, probably a long time ago, and choosing from this moment forward to break it. Because the truth is, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our habits. This is a great book if you ever want to read it. Because our habits aren't just behaviors. They're expressions of our beliefs. And if we want real change, not just like surface level, but identity shifting, real future altering change, we need to go deeper. The next hour isn't going to be about trying harder or hustling your way through. It's about finally understanding why you do what you do and reclaiming the part of you that's been running the show in the background. So what if I told you that your habit isn't just a behavior? It's a story you've been telling yourself over and over again. We tend to think of habits as tasks, things we do and we check off. But habits aren't just about action. They're about meaning. They're psychological loops, rituals that are repeated, not because they're necessarily effective, but because they're familiar. Every habit you have is a conversation between your past and your present. And if we think about that for a second, that nightly scrolling that you can't stop, that constant overthinking, that procrastination, they aren't random. They're adaptations. They're answers to an unspoken question that your nervous system probably asked a long time ago. How do I cope with what I'm feeling right now? How can I protect myself? How do I feel like I'm in control? And let's go deeper, because behind every habit, there are two hidden forces. First is a function, and this is what the belief, or the habit, is doing for you. Then we have a belief, and this is what the habit is saying about who you are. And if we break that further down, a function is what your habit might be giving you. So it could be giving you a sense of calm, a little tiny moment sliver of relief, or maybe just some way to avoid the feeling of shame, of emptiness, fear, boredom, whatever it is. And then we have the belief, which is the story, the deeper story, which might sound like, I can't handle this. This is just who I am. I need this to feel okay. If I don't keep doing this, everything will fall apart. So you're not addicted to the habit. You're loyal to the belief that's behind it. And let's bring in some of the research on this. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, he has a podcast, and I invite you to listen to his podcast because they're very, very good if you're interested. He shares that up to 70% of our waking behavior is habitual. If you think about that, what most of us do each day is automatic, 70% of it. But not all automatic behavior is unconscious. Some of it is learnt and rehearsed until it becomes your default. That's where we need to understand the difference between reflexes and habits. A reflex is involuntary. You blink when something comes towards your face, right? A habit though, a habit is something that your nervous system learnt through repetition, through emotion, and through reward. So it's plastic, it's moldable and changeable. This is the power of neuroplasticity. It's your brain's ability to form and reform connections. So when people say, I'm just really not a consistent person, or I'm very bad at following through, it's not a fact. It is a story that's been hardened into a neural pathway. And if it was learnt, it can be unlearnt. So the question then becomes, what story has your nervous system been practicing so long that it feels like the truth? Because today we're going to begin rewiring it. When most people try to change, they aim at a goal, right? I want to meditate daily. I want to go to the gym 4 times a week. No phone after 9 p.m. And goals are completely fine, don't get me wrong, but they are fragile. They bend the moment that life starts to apply pressure or something is just completely out of routine. That doesn't normally happen. And let's be real, when does life not apply pressure? It happens all the time. But with that, identity is different. So if you have a goal-based goal, so we're looking at, I want to meditate daily. We can turn that into an identity-based one, saying I'm someone who chooses peace under pressure. And if you think from that space, if I'm somebody who chooses peace under pressure and I'm feeling a little bit stressed right now, what would I do in this moment if I'm somebody who chooses peace under pressure? And that might not be just meditation. It could be something else that still honors that. But it will make that goal more inevitable because that's just who you are now, right? Or we can have the goal-based one of I want to work out 4 times a week. Instead, you can say to yourself, I'm an athlete in training. Movement is how I care for myself. Or a goal-based, no phone after 9 p.m. Identity instead is I'm the kind of person who protects my attention. Behavioral research shows that long-term change sticks when it's anchored to identity, not just outcomes. But why? Because we act to stay congruent with who we believe we are. If your identity says, I'm a very chaotic person, your brain will subconsciously collect and cherry pick all the evidence to support that belief, to support that identity, and stay consistent so you can stay consistent with who you believe you are. If your identity says, I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start, your actions will line up, even when you don't feel like it. That's why identity is so powerful, and I talked about it last month as well, because it's that powerful and I really enjoy it. And it's such a useful tool in so many ways, so it's not just in terms of habits. But I want you to now to think about 2 habits that you have. One that you're happy with, that you are happy that you do. Or if you can't think of anything off the top of your head, maybe just one that you're a bit neutral about, like brushing your teeth. And then think of one that you're not that happy with, that you would rather not do. So ask yourself with these 2 habits, what identity is that reinforcing within me right now? And be honest. Is it the procrastinator? The one who people pleases but self-abandons? This resilient learner? And I actually want you to name it, because you can't change what you can't name. And this is a trick that's adapted from narrative therapy. And here's a deeper truth that most conversations about habits avoid. You don't just have behaviors, you have a self-concept, a story about who you are, that your behaviors keep proving true. So if identity drives persistence, what keeps you stuck? There's 3 psychological forces. The first one is emotional regulation, which is rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy. Many bad habits are emotional strategies in disguise. Scrolling, snacking, pouring another glass of wine, picking a fight, these are all aimed to down-regulate discomfort, or maybe avoid feared experiences such as failure, rejection, boredom, whatever it is. And in cognitive behavioral therapy terms, the loop is that you have a trigger, you create your interpretation, what you make of it, that leads to your behavior, and it gives you short-term relief. In acceptance and commitment therapy, it's experiential avoidance. It's moving away from what hurts rather than towards what matters. If you zoom out, you actually move away from what matters. So here's a reframe. Your habit isn't just evidence of some sort of weakness about you. It's evidence of an unsolved emotional problem. Solve the regulation, and the behavior loses its power. Then we have the second one, which is self-identity and self-concept. We tend to actually gravitate towards behaviors that confirm our existing beliefs and self-schema. If the quiet belief is that I'm unreliable, your mind will cherry pick, as we said before, cherry pick every single miss and ignore all of your wins. If the belief is I'm becoming a reliable person, you'll start collecting micro evidence to support that. 2-minute actions, small completions, kept promises. You take them all. Identity becomes the filter, and your habits become the evidence. Then we have the third one, which is unmet needs, which is rooted in internal family systems and schema therapy. Habits often meet, and we talked about this last time as well, they often meet valid needs in invalid ways. The late night binge might be a part of you just begging for comfort after a really stressful day. People pleasing might be part of you trying to make you feel that you belong with those people that you're with. Perfectionism might be a part of you trying to stay safe and avoid criticism or negativity. In internal family systems, these parts are protectors, not saboteurs. In schema therapy, entrenched patterns protect our core needs. So our core needs for safety, connection, autonomy, but they often come at a long-term cost. Now, I already said this once, but I'll say it again because it's important. And let me metaphorically underline this. You're not addicted to the habit. You're loyal to the belief and the need that's beneath it. And remember, a massive amount of what you do each day is automatic. Habits are learnt, not fixed. And anything learned can be unlearned and rewritten. Now that you see the drivers, we looked at the emotional regulation, identity, and unmet needs. Let's look at what actually keeps the brakes on when you do try to change, and how to release them so that you can finally be free from them. So let's name the invisible force that stalls all your best intentions, and it's called limbic friction. The inner resistance that shows up as either feelings of tiredness or apathy, or maybe you're just really wired, anxious, and over-aroused. And it's not an issue with your personality. It's a state problem. So we can use a metaphor. It's like trying to drive your car with the brakes on. You're pressing the accelerator, which is your motivation, while your nervous system is slamming the brakes, which is your protector. So of course, in that instance, it feels like, I can't do it. Your body is literally arguing with you and going against your plan and fighting against you. So let's look at these states. Because when we have tired mode, you're under-aroused. So it feels like you sort of feel like heavy, or you feel foggy in your brain, or just a bit of a meh, don't really care too much, you have low initiative for things. So what's happening psychologically is that you're experiencing behavioral inertia. Your system anticipates the effort, or perhaps just the perceived effort required to do the thing. And your brain just chooses energy conservation instead. And a typical mistake that people do to try to fix that is to just shame yourself. Just do it. Why can't we be like Nike and just do it, right? But this just increases your fear response. And then we have a wired mode, which is when you're over-aroused and you're over-anxious. So this can feel like you're a bit agitated, you're restless, you're catastrophizing, you're trying to make everything perfect. And what's happening psychologically with that one is that your system is detecting threat. So action feels really risky, so you avoid it and just scroll on your phone instead. And a typical mistake that people do to fix that is forcing the action, which actually spikes your anxiety instead, and then you just leads to more avoidance. So you just avoid it even more. But here's what you need to know. If you can shift your state, you can shift your behavior. And we don't start by trying to muscling the habit into submission. We start by regulating the system that's resisting it. So let's look at these states. If you're tired or under-aroused, what you need is activation. So the body leads the mind. So maybe you can take 20 brisk steps, maybe to your mailbox and back. If you have a big house, maybe do a couple of laps or something. Maybe just shake out your arms, jump a little bit, just activate the system if you're feeling a bit too tired. Maybe splash cold water on your face or your wrists. And make a micro commitment to yourself. Only 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Start with the smallest visible action. It's about building momentum. And you can also cue novelty. So you can stand up if you've been sitting for a long time. Maybe change rooms, open a window, just do something to wake up the system. Now, if you're wired or over-aroused, what you need is down-regulation. So you've got to name it to tame it. I'm feeling anxious, but that doesn't mean I'm incapable. And rate that feeling from 1 to 10. And do some exhale prolonged breathing. So in for 4, out for 5 to 6, for 6 round or something like that. Just focus on the exhale with that. Lengthening the exhales signals to your system that it is safe and it can just relax a little bit. Or another thing that you can do is you can lower the bar. So swap doing the thing perfectly for just being present while doing it. One messy repetition or attempt of that habit is still better than another hour of avoiding it. Those habits that you have, you didn't pick them because you're lazy. You picked them because at some point it helped you. Scrolling soothed loneliness or boredom. Food maybe softened a sense of emptiness. People-pleasing protected your sense of connections. Procrastination shielded you from shame if you failed. And these weren't bad choices by any means. They were protective strategies that did work at the time. So our work isn't to bully this protector and beat it into submission, is to update its job description. Because once the state shifts, the friction drops away. And when the friction drops, the habit that you keep failing at becomes doable. Not because you got stronger, but because you got smarter about how your psychology actually works. So we're going to try to put this into practice now. So first, we'll identify your personal friction profile. Then we'll run a quick 2-minute state shift exercise to lower the resistance and prime your brain for follow through. So firstly, I want you to name a habit. And if you have one of the pieces of paper, I recommend grabbing one. So I just want you to write down one habit that you want to create this week. Or you can just think about it and try to make it concrete. 10-minute morning walk, 2 pages of journaling, meditate for 30 minutes, lights out by 10:30. Think about something that you've been wanting to do. Try not to make it too extravagant and big. And so once you have that, spot the state that usually blocks it. Are you either wired or apathetic, or do you feel that you're tired and apathetic, or do you feel that you're wired and over-aroused? And which one stops you from doing that habit when you go to do it? Most often. It'll probably change sometimes, but most often, which is the one that stops you? So if you're tired, it often feels like low energy, you're foggy, or you feel heavy. If you're wired, maybe you're restless, you want to make sure it's perfect, or you feel a bit anxious about it as well. It could be a mixture of both as well. Often it's more one than the other, but just write down what you think often stops you. And then I want you to choose a state shift and name what you could do or would be likely to actually do in that situation when that moment occurs and you feel that resistance coming up. So would you be willing to take a few quick, brisk steps to the mailbox and back, or to the one side of the house and back? Would you shake out your arms? Would you be willing to jump? Would you be willing to just take some deep breaths? Maybe just look at a plant that you have and just notice all the details on a single leaf. What's something that you feel like you would be willing to do that doesn't take much time at all in that moment? If it takes too much time, there's going to be resistance. So you want to make sure that it's something that you can do in under a minute, preferably 10 to 30 seconds. Once you have that written down, if you're tired, you're looking for activation. If you're wired, you're looking for down regulation. By doing either of these things, by either sitting tall, shoulders back, you're signaling safety or energy, whichever one your system needs at that time. We're going to move on to the main part of this activity, which is mental rehearsal or procedural memory activation. It doesn't take very long. We're going to do this little quick exercise. So if you are comfortable, I do invite you to close your eyes. If you do not want to close your eyes, that is perfectly okay. Just lower your gaze and relax a little bit. We're going to walk through the exact sequence of your habit. Small, specific steps, because your brain loves patterns and sequences. So we are going to feed it the movie, frame by frame. So I want you to see the moment before the habit starts. So you haven't done it yet. Where is it that you are? What's happening in your environment? What are you doing? And this is the cue. Maybe your alarm rings, or you arrive home, or the clock hits 9:30. See the moment before the habit starts. And now notice your body in that moment. How does it feel? Take a deep breath in, and then take a deep breath out. Now notice and do the first tiny action you take towards that habit. Is it just swinging your feet off of the bed onto the floor, putting your shoes on, drinking your morning coffee, opening your notebook, or filling your water glass? Just the first tiny action you take towards that habit. It's not the habit yet. It's the first action, tiny little action you take towards that habit. And now the next action you take is the actual habit itself you want to do. You step outside into the morning air, you open your journal to today's date, or you dim the bedroom lights. Do the habit. Imagine going through the action, but keep it ridiculously small. 2 minutes of walking, 1 paragraph, phone charger outside the bedroom. See yourself complete that tiny, small repetition or attempt of this habit. And then feel within yourself that sense of done, of completion. Feel that moving through you. Take 1 more slow breath and notice the calm and the clarity. That's your nervous system learning a new route. You can open your eyes again whenever you're ready. So you can think of it like a bracket. What happens right before and what happens right after. Right before is the cue. So this could be your alarm. It's after dinner. The clock strikes 9:30 p.m. And then we have it after, which is a micro reward. And this can be anything that you deem as a micro reward. A sip of tea, checking off a check mark, maybe just a deep exhale, maybe just a quiet, nice work to yourself. What we just did is called procedural rehearsal, teaching your mind the sequence instead of shaming it for the result. In more simple terms, when you mentally walk the steps, your brain flags that pathway as familiar. Essentially, it counts that imaginary rep that we just did as if you actually physically carried it out. So you can think of it as preloading your follow-through. If you like the science, it taps into procedural memory and strengthens the fire together, wire together effect. So to completely lock this in, we'll need 3 tools. They are simple, but they build momentum. So first we have tiny truths. So this is narrative therapy in action. When we talk about changing habits, many people just try to bulldoze over their shame with pure force. But in narrative therapy, we don't force through shame. We rewrite the story it's telling. Often the old story sounds like, I'm really bad at habits. The tiny truth version might be, I'm learning to honor what matters to me. Or maybe the old story is that I always fall off and I can't follow through. The tiny truth is I kept 1 promise today, and that's the evidence that I can. So here's how you can use it in under 60 seconds. Notice when the old sentence pops into your head. Replace it with a tiny truth that is both kind and undeniably true. And say it once, write it once, act on it once. From a psychological perspective, this works because it shifts your self-schema with micro-evidence. That was a tongue twister. Your identity follows honest proof, even when that proof feels so incredibly small and insignificant. Then we have the replacement ladder, which is rooted in behavioral psychology. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is trying to just rip out a coping strategy without putting anything else in its place. Your nervous system does not like that. Remove without replacing, and your brain just interprets it as threat. The trick is to climb 1 rung at a time, upgrading the habit slowly rather than just destroying it in 1 hit. For example, if you're doom scrolling in bed, move the phone to the kitchen and maybe just read for 2 minutes. Maybe you still go back to your phone, but you still took that time to read for 2 minutes to at least give yourself that opportunity to find another coping mechanism. Now, if you wind down maybe with a glass of wine before in the evenings, maybe you can swap it for a sparkling water ritual or something else, and maybe some slow deep breathing. If you usually default to drive-through comfort fast food, maybe prepare a satisfying bowl at home that still has that same salt, the same crunch, the same fat that you're craving. If you get stuck in catastrophizing sort of thinking, try just getting your journal out and do a 3-line worry dump. Just dump all of your worries and then write just 1 next action. And we have 2 rules for this. replace the function. That's your goal. Whether that's for comfort, control, or connection, or whatever it is, with something that meets that same need. And then make the upgrade just 10 to 20% better. Not perfect in the beginning. In fact, it's actually better if it's not. Stay there for 3 to 7 days before moving up another rung and updating it by another 10 to 20%. So ask yourself, what function does my habit serve? And what's the next best version that still gives me that? This works because it meets a valid need in a safer way, reducing threat signals so that your brain's protector mode can just stand down for a second. And then we have number 3, which is context anchoring. Because motivation, unfortunately, is very unreliable. This real secret to consistency is context. We tie our habits to the environment, to our values, and our built-in cues, not to our willpower. And here's the formula. If cue in your environment, as your identity, I, the behavior you act out, then micro reward. So that can look like, if I finish making coffee, which is making your cue, as somebody who protects her attention, which is your identity, I put my phone in the kitchen, behavior. Then I take 3 deep breaths on the balcony, which is your reward. Another example, if I arrive home and put my keys down, cue. As a person who takes care of her body, identity, I lay out my workout clothes, behavior, and then I tick my box on the calendar, reward. So to build your anchor, pick a cue you're already doing daily. We do so many things. As I said, 70% of what we do is automatic. So just pick something that you're already automatically doing. Name the identity that this action expresses. Insert the small action you will actually do, and remember, it can be incredibly small to start off with. And end with a reward that you can feel. And you have to bring your emotions into this. Is it the relief, a check mark, a sip of your favorite tea? I keep bringing up the tea because I really love tea. So for me, that's a good one. So why does that work? If you're making a habit less dependent on mood and more tied to your actual life, that's already happening and unfolding. It makes it so much easier. You're literally turning your values into your routines. So let's do this one quickly. You can turn to the page with the ladder images, and there should be a box at the bottom. And I want you to fill that one out because we have this formula here. So I just want you to write that one out. So the cue in your real environment. This is something that's already happening in your day-to-day life. And then name that identity from before. That habit that you want. What identity is it reinforcing within you? And then what's this very, very minute, small behavior you can do? And then a tiny little micro reward. And remember, that's very personal. But I want it to be a micro reward. It should be something that you can do in under a minute. Does anybody want to share their formula that they wrote? But the reason why I wanted to open that up, and I know I open it up all the time, but there's a reason I do it. And that's because when you write it and you speak it into existence, it holds more weight for you. So even if you don't say it today, and you don't have to say it today if you don't want to, I truly do encourage you, when you get home, say it to yourself. In the mirror, by yourself, whatever it is, I want you to actually speak it out loud, speak it into existence, and it'll hold more weight. You'll take yourself more seriously. Now, most people only reward themselves after they've finished a habit. Very common. But if you want your body to actually crave it, to do this habit, you need to train your nervous system to light up at both the beginning and the completion of it. So before you start, take 20 seconds or 10 seconds for positive anticipation. So when I open this notebook, I'll feel clearer in my head mentally and just cleaner. Feel the feeling that you're going to get from doing this. Just take 10 seconds. It does not need to be long at all. And it's something that you actually have to ignite the emotions within you. And then when you finish, take 10 seconds for a micro reward. That was what I mean. Just make it very short, very simple. It's one deep exhale, just a quiet, nice work to yourself. Tick the box, sip your tea, whatever it is. Drink your cup of water as well. So you can think of it kind of like training a dog, except your dog in this instance is your nervous system. So you don't scold the dog into greatness. You don't scold your nervous system into greatness. You mark the exact moment it does the thing you want. A treat at the start and maybe a pat at the end, right? Because here's the truth. Insight without structure just dissolves. You can have all the aha moments in the world, but without a container to hold them, they're just gonna melt away. So you can think of behavior like a thermostat. Our goal is to nudge, or I should say actually first, it drifts back to a set point under stress. So our goal to nudge that upwards, and not by force, but by steady, repeatable signals to your nervous system that it can trust. So there is a 21-day protocol to build habits, and we can split this up into 2 phases. So phase 1, days 1 to 21, you can choose 6 identity-led micro-beliefs. Maybe you can't think of all 6, that's fine. But just think of 6 tiny micro habits that you want. And these are tiny, they're winnable, and they're visible. Maybe it's just a 2-minute walk after coffee. Open a journal, write 3 lines. Phone in the kitchen, 9:30. Protein in your first meal. 1 push-up out of bed. 3 long exhales before emailing, if it stresses you out. Or just clean your room at night. Just 6 micro identity-led habits. And what you're actually going to do is you're actually going to aim for 4 to 5 a day. I don't want you to aim for all 6. This actually builds in a little bit of a grace and keeps your threat low and your protectors calm. So if you can't think of all 6, that's fine. If you can only think of 3, just aim for 1 or 2 a day. Don't aim for all of them. And don't compensate if you miss. There's no I'll do double tomorrow, because you're just putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. And maybe you'll even try to overcompensate. And I want you to do this approach in a very specific way. And the reason it's this specific way is because this is where the actual power behind this method comes from. And it's the 2-day reset rhythm. I was almost about to say it to you guys just before, but we break the 21 days into 2-day blocks. And each block is a fresh chance to hit 2 to 4 habits. So if you miss a block, reset, don't repay. Consistency will beat intensity every single time. So that means it also breaks it up so it doesn't look as daunting. It's not a full 21 days, it's 2 days. That's all you're looking at. And it'll compound over the 21 days. And then we have phase 2, which is assess. So in this phase, 20 days, 22 to 42, you're not adding any new habits. You're simply just observing and noticing what's stuck without effort or with minimal effort. And if something does keep slipping or you just can't do that one habit, shrink it. That was what we were talking about before. Going down from 20 push-ups to 1 push-up. Shrink it. Or you can swap the cue. If the cue in your environment is not strong enough, not clear enough, sharpen it. That'll also help. So, I know I put this up here, but I have actually made a printable handout. On your handouts, there is a QR code that you can actually scan that has a copy of this 21-day one. So you can print it out and use it. So you don't need to just take a photo of this and just use that. I have put one online as well. So how we're going to track that? So you're going to use one of these boxes per day. So you're going to tick the checkbox if you've done your habits. So remember, we're aiming for 4 to 5. So you're going to circle, were you wired or were you tired when you started? So then you also know what you need to do to either activate yourself or down-regulate. And then write one tiny truth. I kept one promise today. whatever it is. And then note what helped. Was it a cue? Was it the time that you did it? Was it the location? Was it the people you were around? Take note of what worked and what didn't. And in science, the simple terms, to make something automatic takes time. Your brain wires through repetition and safety, not through force. And to build habit strength, we need to combine context independence with low friction. So what's context independence? Brushing your teeth is a very good example of this. You can brush your teeth at home, which is probably what you're normally doing. But if you go on holidays, you're also brushing your teeth. If you're over at a friend's house, you're brushing your teeth. If it's later in the day because you slept in, you're still brushing your teeth. You're going to bed later, you're still brushing your teeth. Well, at least I hope so. At least I hope everyone's still brushing their teeth twice a day. But you see that it's not dependent on context, on your environment, on a cue, right? It's something that you just do. So that's what we're trying to build. Habit strength comes from context independence and low friction. And low friction just means that it feels easy to start. And that's exactly that, culling it down to just smallest thing that you can accomplish. And then we want to troubleshoot with kindness. So if you've done 0 days in a row, either your habits are too big or your cues are unclear. So you can either halve the action, make it smaller, or you can sharpen the cue. Or do you feel that your shame about not doing this is just rising? You can just say to yourself, this habit or this pattern kept me safe. I'm updating it. And then just take one tiny action. And what happens if your life just completely explodes on you? You absolutely can't do anything. I want you to just try to keep one anchor habit alive, even if it's very small, just enough to preserve your identity evidence. So each checkbox is a vote for your identity. As you do the habit, say out loud, as somebody who protects their attention, I put my phone away. As somebody who chooses peace under pressure, I breathe out longer. As an athlete in training, I take that 2-minute walk. And as you follow through on these small tasks, you add to them until they become that fully fledged habit that you're after. But remember, do it slowly. This is how small actions become the proof that your brain believes and the identity that your habits naturally want to protect. Your thermostat moves with small, certain signals. 4 to 5 wins a day. Reset every 2 days, and then simply notice what's stuck. That's how you become the person whose habits won't wobble and won't shake when life does. So let's end today with a final reframe and a commitment that you can carry out this door.
Now the recording cut out a little bit, so let's finish this up. We're going to come full circle here, because habits don't just build outcomes, they build identities. Every tiny act that you repeat is a vote for the person that you're becoming. So let's reframe this. Reframe it with me. You're not trying to fix yourself. You're learning to support the version of you most want to become. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about training your nervous system to match your highest version. So let's anchor this belief. Because before it was, I just suck at consistency. But now, after, it's, I understand my brain and I know how to train it. And I want you to say that to yourself quietly for a second. I know how to train it now. And now for the moment that truly matters. So we're going to go back to that one habit that you identified earlier. The if cue as identity, I will behavior, then reward. So go back to that habit and commit to yourself silently but powerfully with real emotion within yourself, because that's the key. This is my one action and I'm doing it within the next 24 hours. I want you to look at it, read it, and then state your commitment to yourself. Because you're not lazy and you're not broken. The change that you want to experience starts today. Let your actions teach your identity who you are. So you're going to find a link down below that links to a free guided breathwork audio I created just for you. Use it anytime that you feel super stuck or super lost. It's my gift to you for watching this video and coming to my talks. And if this resonated, you're welcome to stay connected. I run regular monthly sessions like this, and I'd love to keep supporting your growth with them. So thank you so much for bringing your presence and your honesty and your heart here today. Thank you so much.